Right, let's pick up where we left off with simplifying fractions. What we learned in the last example, that as soon as you have a denominator that looks complicated, it's far better to factorize all your denominators before you build a lowest common denominator. Now, the only one that I can see is factorizable here is x squared minus x minus 6. So I'm going to factorize it before I build my lowest common denominator. It's an easy trinomial because it's clearly x times x. So let me fill in the rest of the question. And I need to multiply together to give me 6. Now, it seems a bit obvious, though, that if I have an x minus 3 and an x plus 2, I think it's a pretty safe bet that this is going to be x minus 3 and x plus 2, because then I would be able to build a common denominator that was fairly simple. Now, that was just a guess, though. So 3 times 2 does give me 6, and minus 3 times positive 2 does give me minus 6. But let me check. X squared, yes. Plus 2x minus 3x gives me minus x, and minus 3 times 2 gives me minus 6. So it does indeed work, but that was a bit of educated guessing there. Now, this is pretty simple because it means my lowest common denominator needs to have an x minus 3 and an x plus 2, because then that denominator is in there. X minus 3 is part of the denominator, so it doesn't need anything extra. And x plus 2 is part of the denominator, which means I'm simply down to converting each of these fractions to an equivalent fraction, but with this denominator. Now, my first 3x squared doesn't need any multiplication to become an equivalent fraction because it already has that denominator. This denominator is missing an x plus 2, which means whatever you do to the bottom, you must do to the top if you're creating an equivalent fraction. This denominator is missing an x minus 3, so what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. And as soon as I'm at this step, I should breathe a sigh of relief, because all I've got to do now is multiply up, collect out like terms, and don't forget to check whether your final answer can be simplified. So I've got 3x squared. I've got minus 3x minus 6 minus 3x squared plus 9 divided by x minus 3, x plus 2. Like terms at the top, 3x squared, take away 3x squared, nothing. Then I've got minus 3x, and minus 6 plus 9 will give me plus 3 over x minus 3, x plus 2. Now at this point, lots of people forget to check whether you can simplify more. In our last example in the previous video, once I'd factorized, I could actually cancel from this point. Now I can see the top can be factorized. I can take out a negative 3, and I'll be left with x minus 1. Let me check. Minus 3x plus 3, so that's right. But that factorizing doesn't actually help me because it doesn't lead to any common brackets that I could cancel. So in actual fact, if you'd stopped at this point here, you would have gotten all your marks. I always factorize just in case. Now, there's no reason to multiply your denominator out or multiply your numerator back out. It won't simplify any further. So either one of these two is a good place to stop. I do like going to the factorized form, though, just to check if I can simplify any more. So before you start this exercise and stop this video and copy these down, just remember, it's very simple. They look hard, but actually they're very simple. It's about building a lowest common denominator, and before you even get to building that, remember to factorize each of your denominators to build the simplest lowest common denominator you can. And then as long as you remember what you do to the bottom is exactly what you must do to the top when you're making an equivalent fraction, you can't possibly go wrong. So stop this video, copy down these examples, and try to simplify these fractions. Good luck.